Enki, on the other hand, is the great scientist who was the most instrumental in regards to creating us to start with. And, of course, Zeusudra, or Noah, in that story, he showed compassion for mankind by providing a way to save us from the flood. He formed the Brotherhood of the Serpent, which was really the first secret society, and his intent with that organization actually was to teach mankind spiritual knowledge. So he knew that he had created beings that had a spirit or a soul, and he did not think that the Anunnaki should try to destroy that, but indeed should try to develop that and help that to grow and mature. So that was compassion for mankind, certainly. He didn't mind us being a slave and working for him, but he didn't think they should destroy our spirituality. Enlil, unfortunately, usurped the power of that organization from Enki and turned it 180 degrees around, and it's been used to greatly deceive us and so forth. I think, in my mind, the story's still out on Enki in regards to where he stands. In regard to this great family feud he and Enlil have had over these thousands of years. I certainly would assume that Enki disagrees with the script that Enlil has written in the Bible, and the Bible is basically written, from the standpoint of Enlil's side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly would assume that Enki believes that he can win the battle at Armageddon and be successful. He's done horrible things to mankind, on the other hand, as far as what's happened. But one thing about the Anunnaki is that they have this Council of 12, and whatever those 12 decide, then whether you agree with it or disagree with it, then that's what they do. And Enki, of course, was on that council, but I just have my own gut feeling that he's simply done throughout the years what the Council of 12 has directed him to do, and that he may not necessarily agree with everything that they've instructed, but he certainly obeyed.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the material of Robert Shapiro, who does a lot of quote-unquote channeled work, some of which is quite interesting. His whole thing is the explorer race, and he talks about a very similar story, but he uses Lucifer and Yahweh as the Enki Enlil figures, and he attributes them as being from Sirius and Orion, and that Enki is actually part Sirian and part Orion, which is where he gets his rebelliousness, and Yahweh is pure Sirian. You mentioned in the interview with George that they are half-brothers. What is the meaning of the half-brother part? Do they share different fathers? Are they purely Anunnaki? What is your take on that?
They have the same father, but separate mothers. And in fact, Sitchin, in his works, goes into great detail about the fact that these two sons, Enki was actually the firstborn, and like the Israelites in the Bible would have the inheritance rights to the throne of Nibiru from his father. However, an interesting twist in that is that should the king or the ruler have a son by his half sister, then that or by his sister, then that son becomes the ruler, whether he's the firstborn son or not. And that's exactly what happened. Enlil was the offspring of the king Anu and his sister, and so according to those rights, then he should inherit the kingship of Nibiru following Anu. And apparently the two maternal sides had been involved in a family feud for a long time on Nibiru about this before any of them ever came to Earth, and so that feud has just continued and ever since they've been here. And indeed, the Bible is just a story about this family feud between these two half brothers.
So are Enki and Enlil, are they still alive?
I believe that they are. I believe that Enki is still alive on Earth. They would both be very old today if they are. If not, then one of their descendants, I think, has taken their place. We really have no way to know that. But I think it's quite possible that they're both still alive, Enki here on Earth and Enlil on Nibiru, soon to return with Jesus and all of that. Then part of the story begins.
Now, you have a very interesting take on Jesus, and some of which might be called blasphemous in many ways. You see Jesus as being a betrayer. Am I right?
No, actually, I have great sympathy for Jesus. I believe that Jesus was the son of Enlil and Israeli teenager Mary. Just as the Bible says, I believe that Mary was artificially inseminated with the sperm of Enlil, and Jesus was the product. And, of course, he had great abilities, great talents, great powers, and Enlil, I believe, simply brainwashed him from birth, and that Jesus believes exactly what he's been taught all of his life, just like we have. And so I see Jesus as a very tragic figure in all of this. I think it's quite possible that he was crucified and resurrected and sits at the right hand of Enlil on Nibiru today and will return, rule the earth with an iron rod and do all the bad things that the book of Revelation and other scriptures prophesy that will happen. I see Jesus as just being deceived like everybody else, used as a puppet, a pawn to do the work that Enlil wants done, and then I think Jesus will eventually meet the same fate as we are going to if we don't wake up and come to an understanding of the truth.
So in your world and terminology, this version of Jesus Christ is really the Antichrist.
No, I believe that Jesus is simply the one chosen by Enlil to achieve the goals that Enlil wants accomplished here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I think when the Bible is referring to the Antichrist or the opposer of Enlil's views, that's really talking about Enki and the Enkiites, and that's what the Battle of Armageddon is all about. Jesus, the Enlilites, the people who support Enlil having what I believe will be a horrible nuclear war, fighting Enki, the Enkiites, the Antichrist, the Antichrist according to Enlil.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it's just the two sides of the family feud, and whether you want to look at the Antichrist as an actual single individual like opposing Jesus, then in my mind that could be whoever is the head of the one world government when it's formed are certainly the supporters of Enki, at any rate. That system of government opposing Jesus, the Israelites, the nation of Israel, and that's what that battle is all about.
So this is a family feud, and and Enlil is coming back for the final showdown.
At least he's going to send Jesus back, according to the Bible. You know, according to the Bible, Jesus returns, and he, what the Bible calls, harvests the earth, looking for allies to help him in this great battle against the Antichrist. And the Bible says he finds no allies, that actually no one will support he and the Israelites, and that this battle then occurs, and that he wins the battle, and then sets up a form of government that will last for 1,000 years, and that every nation on this earth, because they opposed him, will have to pay tribute to him and pay tribute to him on a yearly basis, and if they don't do so, then they will be tremendously punished and have plagues and no rain and that sort of all of the things that the Bible talks about will happen during that 1,000-year reign. Of course, we get it flipped over at the other side of the coin, just like most of the Bible does. That will be a time of peace and repopulation of the earth and that sort of thing. It's a time of peace because nobody can compete with Jesus and the thumb that they've squashed us with by this.
It's an interesting perspective. We're talking with Dr. Jack Pruett. He's the author of The Grandest Deception, and also a longtime friend and colleague of Dr. Ron Paul, now currently running for president. Dr. Pruett, I was listening to George's show, and a caller called in and asked if you were a Mason, and you admitted that you were a Mason, and then you left Freemasonry. And there's always been a perception about Freemasons and having kind of an antagonistic relationship towards Jesus. And at the same time, you seem to be very well versed in the Bible and probably grew up in a very deeply religious household and trying to reconcile your own relationship with Jesus. How would you answer somebody if they were to say to you, well, he was a Mason, of course he would have a negative relationship aversion with Jesus. This would be in alignment with Freemasonry. How would you answer a question like that?
Well, I think that all of the secret societies, including Freemasonry, are the large majority of the members of Freemasonry are just ordinary, good people who, as they rise through the ranks, so to speak, of Masonry, they're screened and watched, and if they get up to the very highest degrees, the hierarchy of Masonry, a few may even be let in on the real truth, so to speak, and become part of the Illuminati or the establishment and participate in that. But the vast majority of Masons are just common, ordinary people that, have been deceived about things like the rest of us. The very top echelons or the hierarchies, though, are the ones who are involved with the Illuminati, all of the other groups that CFR, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group, and all these branches that are interconnected and correlated in order to manipulate and run things today.
Where do the Jewish people fit in all this? Because I've always had a lot of curiosity about this whole concept of the chosen race, caretaker race, custodial race. Where do they fit in to this story, Dr. Pruett?